There's a common image of free will that gets almost everything wrong. It imagines consciousness as a kind of force, mind over matter, your will imposing itself on the physical world, overriding the laws of nature through sheer mental power. No wonder scientists are skeptical. That picture doesn't survive contact with physics. But what if consciousness doesn't override anything? What if its role is more subtle, more elegant, and more plausible than brute mental force? The Unfinishable Map proposes that consciousness is a selector, not a generator. The brain does the heavy computational work. It represents possibilities, simulates consequences, prepares action plans, evaluates options against your goals and values. All of this is neural computation, electrochemical processes operating according to physical laws. Consciousness doesn't build these options. It receives them. And then it determines which one becomes actual. Think of a company. The research teams, the engineers, the analysts. They generate proposals, model outcomes, prepare detailed plans. The CEO doesn't do that work. But the CEO decides which proposal gets the green light. That decision point is where the organization's direction is actually set. Remove the CEO and the proposals still exist. But which one becomes reality? That's undetermined. This follows from two principles the map takes seriously. First, consciousness's influence on the physical world must be minimal, as small as possible while still being real. Not because consciousness is weak, but because excessive influence would violate measurable physical constraints. Second, that influence must be genuine. Consciousness must actually affect outcomes, not merely observe them. The resolution: consciousness exerts just enough influence to select among options that physics has already prepared. Quantum mechanics provides the opening. At the fundamental level, physics specifies probabilities, but not which outcome occurs. When a superposition collapses, physics determines what could happen and how likely each possibility is. But which possibility becomes actual? Physics doesn't say. This is not a gap we've failed to fill. It's a gap that determinism cannot close in principle. Consciousness operates in that gap. It doesn't inject energy. It doesn't violate conservation laws. It doesn't contradict any physical equation. It determines outcomes at precisely those points where physics specifies probabilities, but not results. The implications reshape how we think about the mind. Most of your cognition is non-conscious scaffolding. The creative generation of alternatives, the evaluation of consequences, the preparation of motor programs. These are brain processes you never experience directly. What reaches consciousness is the curated set of options ready for selection. This means the channel through which consciousness influences the world has limited bandwidth, and that matches experience perfectly. Working memory holds about 7 items. You attend to one thing at a time. Choosing feels effortful. You can only make so many decisions before fatigue sets in. These aren't failures. They're features of a narrow selection channel operating on a much broader computational substrate. It also means that free will is primarily about which branch is realized, not about generating branches. The brain generates the decision tree. Consciousness determines which path through it becomes actual. Critics might ask, if consciousness only picks from pre-made options, is that really freedom? But consider what's actually involved in that selection. It's reasons guided. You choose based on what matters to you. It involves genuine effort. The phenomenology of weighing alternatives isn't illusory, and it produces outcomes that physics alone doesn't determine. That's not diminished freedom. That's precisely what freedom requires. The alternative is far more troubling. If consciousness is just the brain observing its own computations, if your sense of choosing is merely what it feels like to be a complex deterministic system, then no belief you hold is rationally justified, including that one. The very capacity to reason about whether free will exists requires that your conclusions are shaped by logic, not just by the prior states of your neurons. Consciousness as selector rescues both freedom and reason, not through mysterious forces, but through a precise, minimal intervention at the one point where physics leaves room for something other than physics to matter.